I knew something was wrong the moment I heard the trembling in the contractor's voice. A kind of tight, breathless urgency I'd never heard from him before. And when he said the words, "Miss Carter, don't come alone, bring your family," the air around me seemed to thin until all I could hear was my own heartbeat. I was standing in the foyer of St. Bridget's Church with a paper cup of weak coffee in my hand, still dressed in my charcoal blazer from the work seminar I'd just finished. My mind emptied itself in one violent sweep. For a second I couldn't even remember how to breathe. My grandfather's office had been locked for nearly a year. I hadn't touched a single thing inside it. That space still held the scent of cedar, old financial books, the faint aftershave he wore every morning. It was his world, and losing him had left a hollow in me big enough to swallow whole conversations. But now a stranger was telling me to come immediately, and not alone, because of something they had found behind a wall I didn't even know existed. My fingers tightened around the coffee cup until it buckled. I whispered into the phone, "What exactly did you find?" Gary exhaled hard. "Just get here. You're going to want your family with you for this." And then he hung up. I stood frozen under the stained glass glow, the church quiet except for the distant hum of the heating system. My grandfather had been gone 10 months, but just hearing his office mentioned out loud sent an ache rolling through my chest. I wasn't ready. I had never really been ready, and yet something in Gary's voice told me this wasn't about sentimental belongings or old paperwork. This was something darker, something hidden, something he hadn't expected to find. I called my parents first. Mom answered on the second ring with her usual clipped tone, already sounding annoyed before I had finished the first sentence. "You want us to come where?" she asked. Dad grabbed the phone from her. "Emily, sweetheart, it's just an office. Whatever he found, we can handle later." "He said to bring the family," I repeated. He sounded scared. Silence stretched across the line. Then Dad sighed, a weary exhale that told me they were already dreading whatever this was going to become. "Fine, 15 minutes. They hung up without another word. I drove faster than I should have. Monroe Lane appeared sooner than expected, that familiar row of tall pines lining the street like sentries. My grandfather's office sat behind the house, a converted shed painted deep green with white trim, a place where retirees came seeking help on taxes, wills, investments, anything that felt too heavy for their shoulders. He believed the elderly deserved dignity. He believed integrity wasn't a virtue, but a duty. I used to think that belief ran in our family. I didn't know yet how wrong I was. My parents pulled up as I reached the walkway. Mom's coat was buttoned tight, her mouth pinched. Dad kept rubbing his forehead as if this whole visit were an inconvenience. Before I could speak, Gary appeared from inside the office. His face was pale, his hands braced against the doorframe. "Miss Carter," he said quietly, "you need to see this." Inside, the air smelled of dust and cold wood. Boxes I had avoided touching were stacked on the floor. The bookshelf my grandfather built by hand stood along the west wall, except one section had been dragged forward several inches. Behind it, where there should have been solid drywall, a rectangular cutout revealed a narrow alcove hidden behind the structure. And inside that alcove was a small brushed steel safe bolted into the studs. "I didn't touch anything except pulling the shelf," Gary said. "It slid way too easily." That's when I realized it was on a track. My mother's voice rose sharply. "Why are we here for a safe? It's probably empty." "It's not," Gary said. "And your father didn't want anyone in the family finding it while he was alive." Dad stiffened. "What makes you say that?" Gary pointed to the inside edge of the shelf. A strip of masking tape, yellowed with time, clung near the bottom. On it, written in my grandfather's careful handwriting, "For Emily only." Mom's eyes narrowed. "For Emily? That makes no sense." But my stomach dropped. He had written those words intentionally, purposefully. And my parents clearly didn't like that one bit. I approached the safe, my hands trembling before I even reached out. The keypad blinked a soft blue. I tried the numbers I knew he cherished, his Marine Corps ID, the address of the house, the date he opened this office. Nothing worked. Then I tried the simplest thing, the combination he used for everything too sentimental to forget. My birthday. A soft click echoed through the room. The safe unlocked. Inside were 3 items: a USB drive, a thick manila envelope sealed with aged tape, and a small cluster of papers neatly clipped together with highlighted names. My parents leaned in immediately, but I stepped between them and the safe. The envelope had my name written on it in his handwriting. Emily, read alone first. The lettering wavered slightly at the end. He must have written it when his illness advanced. I swallowed hard and clutched the envelope to my chest. "We'll give you privacy," Gary said gently. But my mother snapped, "We're her parents. You should leave." I cut her off. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Something in my tone must have hit a nerve, because Mom stepped back, her face twisting as though she wanted to argue but didn't know how. They left the office reluctantly, murmuring to each other in irritated whispers, and I waited until the door shut behind them before I sat in my grandfather's old leather chair. The envelope trembled in my hands. The last time I sat in this chair, he was alive. Frail, but alive. He had pulled me close and told me not to lose myself even when the world tried to make me smaller. I should have asked him what he meant. I should have stayed longer. I peeled the tape slowly, afraid it would tear the paper inside. 3 pages slid out, front and back filled with his precise, elegant script. I inhaled once, then read. "My dearest Emily, if you are reading this, then I'm gone, and you have found the room I prayed you'd never need. But the truth cannot stay buried, not when it endangers the innocent, and you are the most innocent of all." My eyes blurred instantly. I blinked and kept reading. "I have spent the last 5 years uncovering something I could hardly believe. Your sister Anna, she is not who she pretends to be. She has stolen nearly $2 million from 6 elderly clients. She used your name, your social security number, and forged your signature to create investment accounts that ruined her victims, and your reputation, and your parents have known for 2 years." The words didn't make sense at first. They floated like fragments, impossible to connect. Anna, 2 million, my name, my SSN, my parents knew. My throat closed. I read the next lines with shaking hands. "You lost opportunities, promotions, dignity, not because of your failures, but because of the accounts she opened under your identity. She was able to do this because your mother and father helped cover her tracks, believing they were protecting the golden child. They feared what would happen to her if the truth came out, and so they allowed blame to fall on you." I gasped out loud, the sound tight and choked. My parents knew? They let me walk around humiliated? They watched me lose my job in the financial firm, listened to colleagues whisper that I was irresponsible, smiled at me with pity instead of outrage. I kept reading even as tears dropped onto the page. I hired an investigator the moment I realized the depth of what she had done. I recorded every conversation, traced every transfer, collected every forged document. The USB contains everything. You must use it, protect the victims, and protect yourself. I could not finish this before my illness overtook me, but I believe you can. You carry the strength I always admired. My chest ached so sharply I gripped the edge of the desk. "I'm sorry I could not shield you from your own family, but I trust you to do what is right, even when it hurts. My Emily, you are the best of us. Finish what I started." It ended with his shaky initials. I pressed the letter to my chest and sobbed. Quiet, broken sobs that had been waiting years to escape. Every humiliation suddenly made sense. Every time my parents defended Anna, every time I was told don't make trouble, every time I was made to feel like I wasn't enough. They weren't protecting me. They were hiding her crimes. I don't know how long I sat there. The room felt colder, the dust heavier, the air tight like it was holding its breath for me. Eventually, I opened the USB folder. 2 directories appeared, victims and recordings. My pulse quickened. I clicked victims first. 6 names, 6 lives, 6 people my grandfather had sworn to protect, and that Anna had exploited while wearing my identity. The first file opened to a photo of an older man with a warm smile. Beneath it, a summary: Walter M. Briggs, lost $10,000. Forged documents using Emily Carter's SSN. My lungs refused to expand for several seconds. I whispered, "Oh God, what did she do?" One by one, I opened their files. Each one told a story of betrayal. Each one bore my signature, except it wasn't mine. Each one revealed another piece of the life Anna built by dismantling mine. And then I reached the last folder. A note in my grandfather's handwriting sat at the top. "Emily, this is where you start seeking justice." I sat back slowly, trembling. The truth didn't just hurt. It rearranged everything I thought I knew. My family wasn't what I believed. Anna wasn't who I believed. And I had been living in the ruins of a lie they all helped build. I looked around the office, its shadows stretching across the floor, and I felt something shift inside me. For the first time in years, the shame wasn't mine. The guilt wasn't mine. The failure wasn't mine. The truth was in my hands now, and I was going to use it. The moment I left my parents' house, I knew I wasn't going to sleep that night. Not with my mother's trembling voice echoing in my ears, not with my father's hollow stare burned into my memory, and certainly not with the envelope from my grandfather still lying unopened in my passenger seat like something alive. I gripped the steering wheel with both hands as I drove home, knuckles white, trying to steady the whirlwind gathering inside me. Fear, confusion, betrayal, they tangled together like wires sparking in the dark. When I reached my apartment, I didn't bother turning on the lights. I walked straight to the dining table, placed the envelope down gently, and sat there staring at it as if it might explode. The room felt unbearably quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears until your own heartbeat feels too loud. "Just open it," I whispered, though my hands refused to move. When I finally peeled back the flap and unfolded the letter inside, my breath stilled. My grandfather's handwriting, steady but slightly wavering, filled the page. "My sweet Emily, if you're reading this, you found what I couldn't bring myself to tell you while I was alive." I pressed a hand against my chest to keep my heart from breaking through. "You carry burdens you were never meant to carry," the letter went on. "And the greatest burden you hold is believing that you deserve them." I blinked slowly, letting the words sink in. "Your sister did things you must confront. Your parents made choices that harmed you deeply. But before you face them, you need to understand the truth about yourself. You are stronger than you know. And you will need that strength for what comes next." I wiped at my eyes, unable to stop the tears. He had known how hard this would be for me. He had known what this discovery would do to my heart. "I left you the evidence not because I wanted to burden you, but because you were the only one who could be trusted to see this through. You have a way of standing firm in the truth even when it hurts. That is the Carter legacy I want carried forward." My hand trembled as I folded the letter back into the envelope. I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel steady. I felt like a child again, hurt and confused, clinging to the one person who had never lied to me. But he was gone. And now it was up to me. I exhaled shakily, dragged the USB drive across the table, and plugged it into my laptop. The blue light blinked once, as if waking from a long sleep. 2 folders appeared, victims and recordings. My chest tightened. "Start with victims," I whispered, because I knew that's what he would tell me. The first file opened to a photo of an elderly man, Walter Briggs, 82. His eyes were gentle, the kind that smiled before his mouth did. Beneath his picture, a summary detailed the fraud that had cost him more than $300,000. Stolen through a fake investment account under my name. Forged contract. Fraudulent signature. I leaned back, pressing my fingertips to my temples. It was surreal seeing my name tied to crimes I hadn't committed, like looking at a reflection that wasn't mine. I clicked the next file. Diane Holloway, 79. Her photo showed her sitting at a garden table, surrounded by potted plants. A widow, a retired librarian, her life savings, gone, in my name. I felt something tighten painfully inside me. I clicked another. Henry Loomis. I remembered him. He had always waved when he saw my grandfather outside mowing the lawn. He'd brought us a holiday tin of cookies once, the kind with powdered sugar that stuck to your fingers. His summary was worse. Not only had he lost over $400,000, but he had been denied necessary medical equipment because his credit had tanked. Credit destroyed because the accounts were under my name. My stomach twisted. My name was everywhere. My identity, my signature, my reputation, all used as tools to hurt people who trusted my grandfather, and me. How had she done this? How had she sat across from them, looked into their eyes, and lied so easily? My throat tightened as I opened the folder labeled Morris Couple. Their smiling faces stared back at me. A retired teacher and her husband. They had lost $500,000. Money meant for medical care, for their grandchildren's college funds. I covered my mouth with my hand. "This is Anna," I whispered. "This is all Anna." But the next file made my breath stutter. Eleanor Myers. She had died believing I had betrayed her. The weight of that truth landed like a stone in my chest. "I'm so sorry," I whispered to her photo, though she couldn't hear me. "You didn't deserve that." For a moment I couldn't move. The weight of the truth pressed hard against my lungs. After several long seconds, I forced myself to click the next folder, Recordings. 8 audio files appeared. The first was labeled Confrontation, Anna. My finger hovered over it. I clicked play, static, then breathing, then my grandfather's voice, weak but steady. "Anna, why did you do it?" Her voice came next, sharp, annoyed, defensive. "Stop, Grandpa, you don't understand." I stiffened, every muscle going tense. He pressed, calm, patient, heartbreak buried beneath every word, and she cracked, piece by piece. "I used her name," she snapped, "but she wasn't supposed to find out." My breath caught, my whole body froze. "I built something," she continued. "I deserved it. Emily never fights for anything. She lets people walk over her. She's weak." Weak. The word buried itself in my chest like ice. My grandfather's voice broke. "You ruined her life. She ruined her own life," Anna snarled. "She always does." Every word cut deeper. Then, she deserved it. I felt like I had been slapped. My throat tightened so painfully I had to pause the recording just to breathe. I pushed my chair back and stood, pacing the length of my apartment as adrenaline surged through me. My fingertips tingled. My breath came too fast. I felt raw, exposed, carved open. When I returned to the table, crying openly, I forced myself to restart the recording. My grandfather tried to reason with her. He reminded her of the victims. He reminded her of family. She mocked him. Then the worst part. "If this goes public," she said, "Emily goes down first. Everything is in her name. She'll get arrested long before anyone comes after me." My hands trembled violently. She had planned it. She had planned to let me take the fall. Not accidentally. Not impulsively. Intentionally. I stopped the recording again and pressed my hands over my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. Tears streamed down my cheeks, but I made no sound. After several minutes, I returned to the laptop. There were more files, more truths, but I clicked the one labeled Parents, Argument. My father's voice came first. "Dad, please, Emily can't know, she'll fall apart." My mother, "If this gets out, Anna will crumble. We need to protect her." I felt nauseous. Protect her. Not me. Never me. "You're sacrificing Emily," my grandfather said, voice breaking. Silence. Then my father whispered, "She can handle disappointment." I covered my face and broke. broke in a way I didn't know I still could. My parents had chosen her. Over truth, over justice, over me. I sat there for what felt like hours, breathing through the devastation, letting it soak into me so thoroughly that there was no room for denial left. When I finally lifted my head again, everything looked different. The apartment, the evidence, my own reflection in the dark window. The truth didn't just break my illusions, it freed something inside me, a flame, a purpose, a resolve. I wiped my face, inhaled, and whispered, "Grandpa, I'm going to finish this." I opened my laptop and typed an email. Subject, evidence submission, urgent, to Agent Marcus Hale, FBI Financial Crimes Division. My voice no longer shook. My hands no longer hesitated. Because the truth, now fully seen, fully felt, had given me exactly what my grandfather said it would: strength, clarity, purpose, and I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of the evidence, not of my family, not of what came next. The truth was mine now, and I was ready to use it. The house was silent when I slipped inside that night, but my mind roared like a storm. I didn't bother turning on the lights. I went straight to my bedroom, closed the door, and set the USB in the center of my desk, the way someone might place a weapon they were afraid to touch. For a long time I just stared at it, the tiny black rectangle holding more weight than any object I'd ever owned. It felt alive somehow, pulsing with everything my grandfather had uncovered, with every lie my sister had fed the world, with every injustice that had wrapped around my name like barbed wire. I sat down slowly, opened my laptop, and plugged the USB in. The quiet click sounded like a key turning in a lock I couldn't undo. The screen lit up, and 2 folders appeared immediately, exactly as they had in his letter. Victims and recordings. But now there was something else. A 3rd folder I hadn't noticed before. At the top, in bold letters, it read, "Start here." My chest tightened. I clicked it. Inside was a single document, nothing but a scanned note written in my grandfather's handwriting. 5 words. Begin with compassion. You'll need it. I exhaled slowly, the breath shaky. Compassion. It felt impossibly far from me at that moment, but I understood why he wrote it. The truth ahead wasn't going to just expose Anna. It was going to tear apart the last shreds of the family I had believed in. And compassion might be the only thing that kept me from drowning in the anger rushing beneath my skin. I opened the victims folder next. 6 subfolders neatly arranged, each named with a person's full name. I clicked the first one. A picture filled my screen, an older man with bright eyes and a smile that had probably softened strangers' days. His name, Walter Briggs, 82. I remembered him faintly, a retired postal worker who lived down the street from my grandfather's house. He had brought my grandfather homemade fudge every Christmas. Below the photo was a summary of his case. Stolen, $10,000, account opened under the name Emily Carter. Social security number match confirmed. Signature, forgery consistent with suspect AC. My throat closed. My own name, my own identity, used like a mask stolen off my face. A PDF labeled Contract sat beneath the summary. I opened it, and my breath caught in my chest. The signature at the bottom was nearly perfect. My handwriting, my curves, my loops. But it wasn't mine. I knew every line of my signature. Whoever forged it had studied me, watched me, knew exactly how to mimic me. I sat back, pressing a hand over my mouth as if that would stop the disbelief flooding my veins. I remembered the year that contract had been dated. That same month I'd applied for a credit card and been rejected without explanation. I'd told my parents. My father shrugged and said, "You must have missed something." My mother had said, "Emily, you need to grow up and manage your money better." And I had believed them, because believing them was easier than believing anyone in my family might betray me. I opened the next file. Diane Holloway, age 79. A widow with soft eyes and silver hair pinned in a bun. My grandfather's note sat attached. "She trusted the wrong face. She thought it was you." A deep ache spread across my ribs. A recorded audio file was below her documents. I clicked it. The sound of a woman crying quietly filled the room. She said she was Emily. She said your granddaughter would take care of everything. I stopped the recording so abruptly my fingers stung against the trackpad. Heat prickled the back of my neck. Anna had introduced herself as me, not just on paper, in person. My vision blurred. I closed my eyes and forced myself to breathe through it. I clicked on the third victim. Henry Loomis, 85. I froze. I knew Henry well. He had come into my office twice when I was still working at the wealth management firm. He'd been so distressed because his accounts were locked. I had sat with him, offering help, thinking he had forgotten passwords or been caught by some company error. But now I saw the truth. His summaries listed total loss, $440,000. Identity used, Emily Carter. Document signatures, forged. Evidence links to suspect Anna Carter. I blinked away the tears burning my eyes. All this time Henry had looked at me with confusion, maybe even disappointment, and I had no idea that behind his eyes was a suspicion that would have broken me if I'd known. I moved to the fourth folder. Harold and Lorna Morris. A married couple in their mid-70s, smiling with their arms around each other. They had lost over $500,000. Stolen through a company Anna created, a consulting firm with my name plastered across fake brochures. A video clip was attached, a grainy camera feed from a cafe. I clicked it hesitantly. A woman sat alone at a table. A thin figure with blonde hair pulled back, wearing a mask and sunglasses. But on her wrist, the bracelet, my bracelet. Or rather, the one that Anna had begged to borrow 2 years earlier. I had thought nothing of it. The video zoomed in, confirmation written in pixels. A knot formed in my throat so tight I couldn't swallow. Fifth victim. Sofia Delgado, 81. Her funds had been wired directly to a shell company created under a fake address in New Mexico. I scrolled through the timeline and found the largest transfer, dated the exact weekend Anna had shown up to a family barbecue with a new SUV and announced she had finally hit it big. My palms shook as I closed the file. The sixth folder took me the longest to open. Eleanor Myers, 84. Gone now. She had passed away last year. Her photo showed a woman with kind eyes and a wide-brimmed sun hat. My grandfather left a voice note in her folder, made 2 months before he passed. Emily, she thought you betrayed her. She died believing that. My breath left me in a sharp, wounded gasp. I pressed a hand against my chest as if I could push the pain back inside. I stared at the 6 faces lined up on my screen. 6 lives uprooted. 6 people who had trusted my grandfather, trusted me by extension, trusted the name Carter. And Anna had taken their trust and carved it into something unrecognizable. I sat back and wiped at my eyes. The world felt smaller, heavier, warped by the gravity of what my grandfather had carried alone. I clicked the last file in the victims' directory, a compilation folder titled Photos. Inside were images of each victim standing with their families. Some were smiling, some were weary, some were leaning on canes or walkers. All of them were real, human, vulnerable. My grandfather had written small notes beside each one. She believed in goodness, protect that. He was alone, don't let him stay that way. Emily must know the truth. I closed the folder slowly, letting the weight of every word sink in. My hands were cold against the laptop. The room felt colder too. Then something caught my eye. A notebook page scanned into the USB. Handwritten, scrawled quickly, almost angrily. Anna targeted the lonely, the quiet, the trusting. She chose the ones who reminded me of myself. I sat very still, letting those last words echo. He had seen himself in the people she hurt. He had spent his life protecting them, only for his own granddaughter to become the threat. And my parents? They had chosen silence, chosen Anna, chosen the version of our family that looked perfect on the outside, no matter how rotten it grew on the inside. I looked again at the document names, at the folder titled Recordings. My heart began beating harder. I knew I needed to click it. I wasn't ready. But ready didn't matter anymore. I opened the folder. 8 audio files. 6 were tagged with the victims' names. 1 marked Parents' Argument, and the final one, Anna Confession, full recording for Emily. A chill ran through me so sharply I almost shivered. I pressed my fingertips against the trackpad and hovered over the file. I clicked play. Static crackled. Then my grandfather's voice, weak, breathless, filled the room. Anna, why did you do it? I covered my mouth with both hands as tears blurred the screen. The recording was just beginning, but I already knew. This was the turning point. The moment nothing in my life would ever be the same again. I leaned closer to the laptop, heart pounding, breath unsteady. Then her voice came through, sharp, defensive, familiar in the worst way. Grandpa, stop, you don't understand anything. And the truth, the one my grandfather had carried alone for years, unfurled in the dark room like a blade. I closed my eyes, ready to hear everything. Ready, at last, to face what my family had become. The first thing I heard when I opened the file was my grandfather's breathing, shallow, uneven, the kind that made my throat tighten instantly. Then came his voice, thin but steady enough to cut straight through me. Anna, why did you do it? For a moment, all I could hear was the low hum of the laptop fan and my own heartbeat pulsing in my ears. Then Anna's voice burst into the silence, sharp and irritated. Grandpa, stop! You don't understand anything. I froze. Even in that single sentence, I heard every layer of her. Defensiveness, impatience, and that superiority she wore like perfume. I leaned closer to the speaker, gripping the edge of the desk. My grandfather didn't raise his voice. He never had to. I understand more than you think. There was a long pause. I imagined her sitting across from him, arms crossed, foot tapping, avoiding his eyes the way she always did when cornered. The quiet crackled between us like a live wire. You lied, he said softly. And you didn't lie to strangers. You lied to family. She scoffed. Family, please. You only ever cared about Emily. The sound of my own name from her mouth made my stomach twist. I pressed my hand over my lips to stop the sound that almost slipped out. Let's stay with the facts, he said, breath heavier now. 6 elderly clients, 6 accounts under Emily's identity. $2 million, Anna. This wasn't a mistake. Another pause, a shifting noise, a chair leg scratching the floor. Everyone makes mistakes, she snapped. You're blowing this out of proportion. Mistakes don't transfer hundreds of thousands of dollars, he answered. Mistakes don't involve forged documents and stolen social security numbers. Her voice lowered, bitter. You always take her side. My eyes burned. I didn't want to hear this, but I couldn't stop. Because she didn't do this, he said. You did. The recording crackled, and then suddenly something banged. A fist against the table, maybe. Fine, she exploded. Yes, I used her name, but she was never supposed to find out. I sucked in a breath so fast it hurt. My hands trembled uncontrollably on the desk. My grandfather didn't raise his voice, but I heard the tremor in it now, the grief. Emily has suffered because of you, he said. Her credit, her career, she lost everything, and you watched it happen. She's weak, Anna spat. She should have fought harder. She lets people walk all over her. The words sliced straight through me. I pressed a fist to my chest like that could dull the pain. She never deserved anything she got, Anna continued. She's the golden girl who always did everything right. I just took what evened things out. By taking from people who could not defend themselves? He asked sharply. By hurting those who trusted you? There was silence. Heavy. 30 seconds, maybe. Then, they have more money than they need. I covered my mouth with both hands. And you thought you deserved it, he murmured. Is that it? Her voice changed then, lower, edgier. I built something with that money, something good, something I deserve credit for. You built it using Emily's identity, he replied, using her reputation, using her name. So what? She shot back. She's too afraid to take risks. I did what she never could. His breath rattled. By ruining her. She ruins herself, Anna said. Always has. My lungs felt tight, starved. The room around me dimmed as if shrinking to a tunnel around the screen. I checked the accounts myself, he said. Every transfer, every shell company, every IP address, it all points back to you. She didn't answer. I had a handwriting expert analyze the signatures, he added quietly. They confirmed every forgery. The explosion came then, loud, harsh. Oh my God, you're unbelievable. You act like Emily is some saint while I'm what, the devil? I did what I had to. I survived. People like her don't understand survival. You hurt people, he whispered. You hurt your sister. She deserved it, Anna screamed. I jerked back from the laptop. The words echoed inside me like metal hitting concrete. She deserved it, Anna repeated, calmer now. She always got what I never did. You gave her your time, your praise, your attention. I was invisible. My grandfather exhaled, slow and full of regret. You could have told me, he said. You could have come to me for help, but you chose this. A chair creaked. Then her voice came again, icy. If you expose me, Grandpa, she goes down first. Everything is in her name. She'll be arrested before anyone even gets to me. I closed my eyes and felt nausea rise like a tide. She had planned it. Every piece, every detail. Is that your plan? He asked. Send your sister to prison for what you did? If that's what it takes, she whispered. I felt something inside me splinter, a crack straight through the foundation of who I thought Anna was. The audio clicked, shifting to another moment. His voice was weaker now. Your parents know, he said. They begged me to let this die with me. I know, she replied. There wasn't a hint of remorse in her tone. You let them blame Emily for years, he said, his voice trembling. You let her believe she was the problem. That was their choice, Anna snapped, not mine. And you didn't correct them, he said. Why should I? She said. Everything worked exactly the way it should. I felt heat rise behind my eyes. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Then her voice dropped, quiet, almost smug. And Emily? She'll never stand up for herself. She never has. My grandfather's voice came back, thin but steady. She will, he said. She scoffed. No, she won't. She's pathetic. No, he replied. She's kind and brave and stronger than you will ever understand. Something slammed in the recording, a hand hitting the table. Anna's voice rose again, high and wild. She's nothing. She's always been nothing. And she'll stay nothing as long as everyone keeps believing I'm the successful one. The next sound was unexpected, soft, broken. My grandfather was crying. The sound of it shattered something inside me. For years, he whispered, I watched you become someone I don't recognize. But this? Hurting people who trusted our name? Betraying your own blood? I failed you somehow. I see that now. You failed me? She said, voice suddenly cold. No. I did what I had to do because no one ever saw me. No one ever chose me. I chose the truth, he whispered. She exhaled sharply, a frustrated, angry burst. You're sick, she said. Why are you doing this now? Because Emily is innocent, he said. Because someone needs to protect her. Oh, please, she said. She'll never know. She will, he said. I've left her everything. There was a scrape of metal. Maybe she stood. You expect her to do something with it? She asked. She'll crumble. She's weak. No, he whispered. You are. The recording clicked off with a final hum, leaving me in silence so complete I felt hollow. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the laptop as if it might offer me answers. Tears blurred the screen as I leaned back in the chair, letting the weight of everything settle over me. It was worse than I imagined, deeper, colder, more intentional. My sister hadn't just stolen money. She had stolen trust, stolen dignity, stolen my life. And my parents knew. The next file blinked up on the screen. Parents, full argument. My hand hovered over it, shaking. Part of me didn't want to know, didn't want to peel back the final layer of betrayal. But another part, the part my grandfather believed in, knew I had to. I clicked play. My father's voice came through first, tense and low. "Dad, please, Emily can't know. She'll fall apart." My mother added sharply, "If this gets out, it destroys us. Anna made a mistake. We can fix it quietly." My grandfather responded, voice trembling, "You're protecting the wrong child." His words struck like a thunderclap. My mother's voice rose, "We are protecting the family." "You're sacrificing Emily," he said. "We're saving Anna," my father snapped. A long pause, then the soft scrape of a chair. "You two are blind," my grandfather said. "You always have been." The file ended abruptly, as if he'd shut off the recorder in disappointment. I sat there in the dim office, light from the laptop washing across my face. Every piece of the truth pressed against me, sharp as glass. The ceiling seemed lower, the air heavier. My family wasn't just fractured, it had been broken for years. And I had been the only one who didn't know. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand, straightened in the chair and pulled the laptop closer. There were more recordings waiting, more truths. But I wasn't the same woman I had been this morning. I wasn't the Emily who shrank under doubt or carried shame that wasn't mine. My grandfather saw something in me, trusted something in me. And now I could feel it rising like a slow burn in my chest. Strength, resolve, purpose. I clicked the next file. Victim Testimonies, full compilation. As the first voice began to play, I leaned forward, not as the broken daughter my parents underestimated, but as the woman my grandfather believed I could be. The woman ready to finish what he started. I didn't sleep that night. I don't think I even lay down. I spent the first hour pacing from my kitchen to the living room, the USB clenched in my hand like a piece of shrapnel I couldn't put down. By sunrise, my apartment felt too small, too tight, too full of ghosts I hadn't invited. So I carried my laptop and the files to the dining table and spread everything out. The notes, the recordings, the printed summaries. It looked like the aftermath of a storm my grandfather had tried to contain alone. I sat down, pulled my hair into a loose knot, and whispered to the empty room, "Let's start." My laptop hummed awake. The USB connected with a soft click, and the numbers, the documents, the transfers I'd only skimmed the day before suddenly formed a map, one so monstrous and deliberate I felt my stomach tighten the deeper I looked. I opened the Excel file again, Anna transferred all final.xlsx. Rows and rows of transactions glowed back at me, 67 in total. My eyes tracked the patterns, dates, amounts, account numbers. At first they seemed random, but as I cross-referenced them with my grandfather's notes, a picture emerged. My breath caught. Almost all the transfers were made on dates important in my own life. Days I'd been working late. Days I'd been traveling for conferences. Days my parents had called with some excuse to check on where I was. Every time I wasn't home, Anna moved money. It wasn't chaos. It was strategy. And at the bottom of the spreadsheet, highlighted in red, was the transfer that made the back of my neck go cold. $190,000. Desert Sun Credit Union. Shell account, Cielo Azul Financial Group. The date next to it was 8 days after my grandfather's funeral. I sat back, pressing my fingers against my temples. She hadn't stopped, even when we were burying him. She'd kept stealing while I was helping my mother choose the flowers for the service. Kept stealing while I was cleaning out his bedroom drawers with shaking hands. Kept stealing while I was crying at his graveside. A grief so sharp it bordered on rage surged through me. I opened the next tab in the file, Location History. There it was, a New Mexico address for the shell company. And beside it, another name I didn't recognize at first. Desert Sun Credit Union. But the moment I typed the name into Google Maps, my breath stilled. The bank sat in a remote area 20 miles outside Albuquerque, a place you wouldn't go unless you needed privacy or distance, a place Anna had been. I minimized the browser and opened my email archives. I searched for old family messages, anything that could show where Anna had been the past few years. A dozen photos popped up: vacation trips, brunch outings, spontaneous solo self-care retreats. 3 years ago, a selfie of Anna at an airport with the caption, "Last-minute getaway, I need a break." The timestamp was the same day the first major fraudulent transfer occurred. 4 years ago, a picture of her at a rooftop restaurant in Tempe, Arizona, wine glass raised. The date matched the second transfer. 2 years ago, a cryptic caption, "Sometimes you need to get out of town to find clarity." The location tag, Albuquerque. It was a breadcrumb trail she probably thought was harmless, but every post lined up perfectly with the stolen money. I sat back slowly. My hands trembled, but not with fear this time, with clarity. She'd been hiding in plain sight, and I had never seen it, not because I was blind, but because I trusted the wrong people. Around mid-morning, sunlight filtered across the table, illuminating a stack of old journals I used to keep. On impulse, I pulled one out and opened it to an entry from last year. April 17th, I applied for the branch manager position today. HR looked at me strangely. Mom said I was imagining it. I flipped the page. May 8th, turned down, credit risk, again. I don't understand how my credit keeps dropping. Another page. June 2nd, Dad said maybe I'm not good with money. Maybe he's right. I'm tired. I closed the journal with shaking hands. For years, I had blamed myself for every failure, every denied promotion, every warning at work about financial red flags. All the while, Anna had been using my identity to drain accounts, and my parents had allowed it, quiet and complicit. I opened my credit report next. The numbers stared back at me like bruises. 7 accounts I had never opened. All delinquent, all stemming from shell companies tied to Anna's trail. I felt a surge of nausea so sudden I had to grip the table. My chest tightened. Breath stuck somewhere between disbelief and fury. I remembered sitting in the HR office at my previous job, the way the manager tried not to meet my eyes when she said, "We're sorry, Emily." I remembered the humiliation, the panic, the night I cried on the bathroom floor because I felt like a failure, and the whole time, it wasn't me, it was her. I needed air. I grabbed my keys, stepped outside, and drove to the park near Greenview Lake. The air was crisp, pine-scented, raw with winter. I sat on a bench overlooking the water, let the cold bite my cheeks, let my breathing steady. I wasn't going to break. Not now, not with the truth finally in my hands. By early afternoon, I returned to the dining table and opened the last stack of documents my grandfather had compiled. Bank statements, receipts, handwritten timelines. At the very bottom of the pile was a note I hadn't seen before. My grandfather's handwriting again, the letters rushed and uneven. Emily, start with the Arizona Trail. It leads to everything. I followed his instruction. The Arizona transactions pointed to an Airbnb rental used twice in the same year. I zoomed into the booking details. The reservation had been made using a throwaway email, but the profile picture, small, nearly unnoticeable, showed a familiar gold hoodie with embroidered initials. I had given that hoodie to Anna for Christmas when she was 22. My fingers trembled as I clicked through the files. Another transaction, another city, another hotel. I typed the address into Google, this time in Tempe. A new shell company was registered there, Horizon Trust Advisors. My breath caught. That name had appeared in several victim files. I opened the victim summaries again and matched the dates. The Morris couple, Sofia Delgado. Every single transfer led back to Anna. By evening, my table looked like an investigative command center. Lines drawn across pages, circles, highlights, arrows connecting her movements, her aliases, her companies. but one page lay separate from the rest. A page my grandfather had printed and annotated heavily. A credit report. My own. He had circled one section in blue ink. Account, Foster Financial Group, Director Emily Carter. Below it he had written, "She doesn't know this exists." Then, in red ink, Anna forged the business license, all losses tied to Emily's identity. I pressed a hand to my mouth. He had been fighting for me long before I knew I needed defending. When the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the walls in orange shadows, I found myself staring at another note in his handwriting, wedged between bank statements. "It all ends when she slips. She will. They always do." I read it 3 times. He had believed Anna's arrogance would be her undoing. And he was right. One of the transfer slips from New Mexico, dated only 9 months ago, carried a detail she hadn't noticed. A signature. Not Emily Carter. Not even a forged version of my name. It was sloppy, rushed, signed by her real hand. The biggest mistake she had made. I picked up the slip, holding it to the light. That single signature, just 5 seconds of carelessness, was enough to unravel everything she had built. My grandfather had marked it with a star. I felt tears prick my eyes for the 100th time that day. Not out of sadness, but out of awe for the man he was. Sick, dying, barely able to stand, and still fighting with the precision of someone who refused to let injustice live another day. My phone buzzed then, a message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, Emily. You don't know what you're doing." My skin crawled. I set the phone down slowly, forcing myself not to throw it across the room. It could have been Anna, or my mother, or my father, or someone connected to the shell companies. But it didn't matter who it was, because I wasn't stopping. Night had fallen when I finally opened the last envelope in my grandfather's stack. A soft manila one I hadn't noticed before, tucked inside the cover of a ledger he'd kept from the early days of his business. Inside was a single slip of paper. "Jack Harmon can help if I don't make it." My breath caught. Jack Harmon, his former colleague, a retired fraud investigator. A man I had met once as a child, but barely remembered. I searched for the number, flipping through papers until it fell out of a folded legal document. I picked up my phone and dialed before I could second-guess myself. A rough, steady voice answered. "Emily? I wondered when you'd call." I froze. You knew I would?" "Yes," he said. "Your grandfather told me everything. I've been waiting." My hand shook as I held the phone tighter. "Can you help me?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "But before you come, there's something you need to see." "What is it?" A pause. Then, "Evidence your grandfather didn't have time to analyze. Evidence Anna didn't know he found. Meet me tomorrow." The call ended. I remained at the table long after the line went dead, surrounded by the truth, surrounded by the lives she had damaged, by the life she had stolen from me. And for the first time in years, I felt something steady rise in my chest. Not fear, not grief, resolve. My grandfather had left me a path, and tomorrow I would take the next step, whatever it cost. The next morning, I drove to Greenview Lake with a knot in my stomach that no amount of deep breathing could loosen. The winter sun cast a pale shimmer across the water, the kind of cold light that looked beautiful from a distance, but felt sharp the moment it touched your skin. Jack Harmon told me to meet him at a small cafe near the shoreline, a place my grandfather used to love, and as soon as I stepped inside, I spotted him. He was sitting alone in the back corner, a tall, broad-shouldered man with silver hair combed neatly away from a lined, weathered face. He wore the kind of coat you buy once and keep for 20 years, the fabric thick, the seams still strong. He didn't smile when he saw me. He simply nodded, stood, and held out his hand. "Emily," he said in a low voice that carried decades of authority, "you look just like your grandfather said you would." I swallowed hard. "You knew I'd come?" "I knew you would have no choice." His eyes, clear, sharp, and impossibly steady, held mine a beat too long, like he was measuring what kind of fight I had in me. Then he gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit, we have a lot to cover." The server approached to take my order, but I shook my head. My stomach couldn't handle anything heavier than air. Jack waited until she walked away before pulling a large envelope from the inside of his coat. He slid it across the table. "Your grandfather gave me this the last day I saw him," he said. "He told me not to open it unless you contacted me, said it wasn't mine to see." My breath caught. I stared at the envelope like it might burn me if I touched it. "Why did he trust you?" I asked softly. Jack leaned back, fingers drumming lightly on the table. "Your grandfather and I worked together for over 15 years. Fraud investigation, mostly cases involving seniors. He was the kind of man who didn't just do his job, he carried people's burdens like they were his own. When he came to me about Anna, he was broken, Emily. Not physically, emotionally. He couldn't understand how it happened under his roof." My throat tightened. "Neither can I." Jack nodded slowly. "That's why we're here." I took a breath and opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, bank documents, scribbled notes, and one USB drive I didn't recognize. My grandfather's handwriting appeared on the corner of a folded page. "Anna's slip-up, the one that ties everything together." My pulse quickened. Jack pointed to the top photo. "This is from a cafe security camera outside Phoenix. Your grandfather couldn't prove the woman in the photo was Anna, but I can." I leaned closer. The image showed a slim blonde wearing sunglasses and a mask. Her head was slightly turned away, but the background was familiar. A high-end coffee shop Anna used to rave about years ago. "What makes you sure it's her?" I asked. Jack slid another image beside it. A zoomed-in shot of Anna's phone case. Rose gold with a marbled pattern and a small gold initial charm. The exact one Anna had posted online 3 years earlier. "These scammers love to think they're smart," Jack said quietly. "But ego is a curse. They can't resist showing off." I stared at the photo, feeling the weight of all the years I'd spent defending her. "She used my identity," I whispered. "She let my credit get destroyed. She let me take the blame." Jack didn't look away. "And she did it knowing you'd never fight back. She counted on you being quiet." I clenched my fists under the table. "Your grandfather told me something," he added. "Said he trusted you to finish what he was too sick to complete." My chest ached. "He shouldn't have had to do any of this alone." "He didn't," Jack said. "He had me. And now you have me." I exhaled shakily, trying to steady myself, but Jack reached into the envelope again and pulled out another file. "This," he said, "is the biggest oversight Anna ever made." He placed a page on the table, a bank authorization form from Desert Sun Credit Union. The signature line didn't say Emily Carter. It didn't even try to mimic me. It said Anna C., sloppy, rushed, probably signed because she thought no one would ever see it. My grandfather had circled it in red. "How did he find this?" I whispered. "He spent hundreds of hours tracking every shell company she created," Jack replied. "He wasn't just looking at your parents' house, he was digging across 3 states. My head dropped, overwhelmed by the magnitude of his effort. He shouldn't have had to carry that alone. Jack's face softened. He didn't want to put the weight on you while he still had time. He told me once, "Emily carries guilt that isn't hers. I won't add to it until she can fight back." Tears blurred my vision. That sounded exactly like him. I flipped through the rest of the file, company registrations, routing numbers, receipts, overlapping dates. Each piece pointing to Anna, each piece linking her fraud to my ruined credit and the 6 stolen lives my grandfather had fought to defend. But then I found something else. A recording transcript. At the top, parents. Second conversation. "Second," I whispered. "I only heard one." Jack nodded grimly. "Your grandfather recorded them twice. The second one, he didn't add it to the USB because he wasn't sure you were ready, but he gave it to me." He pushed another paper across the table. I stared at the words, reading the transcript with growing disbelief. Mom, we can't let this come out. Emily will cause a scene and Anna will crumble. Dad, we just need Emily to stop asking questions. If she keeps thinking everything is her fault, this stays contained. Mom, she's always been easier to manage. Dad, Anna couldn't handle prison. Emily can handle disappointment. My breath stumbled. Handle disappointment. Like that wasn't the story of my entire life. A sound escaped me, half laugh, half sob. They used me, Jack nodded. Your grandfather wrote a note at the bottom. Look. I read the line, penned in shaking handwriting. They sacrificed her to protect the child who hurt everyone. My chest felt tight, burning with betrayal I didn't yet know how to process. Emily, Jack said quietly, your grandfather didn't gather all this to punish your family. He did it to free you. I wiped my eyes furiously. So what do I do now? You call the FBI, he said simply, and you prepare. Prepare for what? For the truth to finally break everything open. I swallowed hard. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You will be, he said. Your grandfather believed that, and so do I. The server brought coffee to the table, even though neither of us had ordered it. She smiled warmly, unaware of the storm I felt inside. Jack waited until she left before speaking again. There's one more thing, he said. He reached into the envelope one last time and pulled out a black flash drive. It was heavier than the others, with a metal casing and a small sticker on the back with my grandfather's initials. He recorded something he didn't want anyone else to hear, Jack explained. Not me, not your parents, not even Anna. What is it? His last message to you. My throat closed. Why didn't he give it to me before he died? He said you weren't ready, Jack said gently. He said you needed the full truth first. My hands shook as I took the flash drive, gripping it like it was the last piece of him I had left. When you're ready, Jack said, listen to it. I nodded, but my eyes screamed the truth. I wasn't ready at all. We spent another hour at the cafe going over documents, trying to form a clear timeline. By noon, my head felt like it was filled with smoke. Every page revealed more of Anna's lies, more of my parents' complicity, more of the burden my grandfather had carried alone. As we got up to leave, Jack placed a firm hand on my shoulder. You're not alone in this, he said. I'll stand with you when the time comes. Your grandfather made me promise. I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded. Thank you. Outside, the cold air hit me like a wave. I stood beside my car, breathing hard, gripping the flash drive so tightly the edges bit into my palm. The lake shimmered in the distance, sunlight catching on its surface like scattered glass. My grandfather had believed I could do this. Jack believed I could do this. And somewhere under the fear and exhaustion, I realized I believed it too. When I got home, I placed the new flash drive beside my laptop and stared at it for several minutes before whispering, "Not yet." There was a knock at my door. I jumped, my heart slamming against my ribs. When I opened it, no one was there, just a plain white envelope on the welcome mat. I picked it up, hands trembling. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 4 words typed in the center. Stop before it's too late. I looked up sharply, scanning the hallway. No one. No footsteps, no sound. But the message was clear. Someone knew what I was doing, and someone was terrified of what I was about to uncover. I closed my door, locked every